Welcome to a NAK Squad live stream. So in this video, this stream, we are simply going to go over what it takes to make a mission for NAK Tac. If you zoom out, you can see a lot of the notations that we've made on the map. Volcano and I come together a couple days prior to the first mission, and well, hopefully a week before the first mission, and just kind of plan out an overall scheme. I set up the initial spawn point with the arsenal and the flags. You can see down here I've just placed some sample buildings that I might be using for something else later on. And then we just start marking regions on the map. Also, before I continue, anybody watching, if you have any comments, questions, I am watching the stream. Let me turn it to live chat. I am watching the stream, so if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in there. But I'll go ahead and continue now. So, just general markers that are placed on the map that give us an idea of the region that we'll be playing in. You can see week 1, we're playing in this region. Week 2 over here. Week 3, week 4 is a couple regions. And down here is week 5. I don't want to give too many things away, but week 1 is pretty straightforward. And one of the things that are needed for week 1 is a fuel depot. So what I try to do is try to find some flat area or flat ground on the map that can work for a larger base. This one's nice because it's got 2 roads here joining, and it's got the road here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and remove these items that I don't want here and then add my own. So we need a fuel depot. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about the marks that are on the map. We can add our own to kind of show that a building is there. What we'll do is this area widget allows you to adjust the size of the widget, and then I can make it resize. So if I wanted to put a full fuel depot that took up this whole area, and then we can change the color to the gray. And when the map is shown, for the most part, it will show that. It's a little bit light on the gray color. The other option is to do a black and try to set the opacity pretty close to the color that's on there. But it's a workaround. It's not a perfect solution. But let's go ahead and add our fuel depot that we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Systems, and then I'm going to go to Environment, and then Hide Terrain Objects. And with Hide Terrain Objects, I'm going to go ahead and place it down on the map. Again, I'm going to keep this area widget option enabled, and I'm going to scale the size of the area. So it's now going to start hiding the objects that it covers. So, for example, in this one, I definitely want to hide the building, but say I don't want to hide that bush that we just deleted. I'll move it in. You can see that bush is there. But I want to delete other things, so I can double click on it and say I want to hide walls and buildings, but not plants, and maybe not other. And we'll see what other is. I think other is going to be these objects. So we'll do what we can to get as many objects removed with a single placement. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all those. Again, as many objects as I can get rid of with a single hide terrain is best. Generally, then what I do is, just for me, is I move these hide terrain markers into a layer of their own, and then I'm going to hide and disable the transformation ability and hide visibility. So the effect is there, but they don't show up on the map and take up a lot of my visual. It doesn't interact with me visually. So I do want to hide all these plants. Obviously they don't work for what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and place down another hide terrain object. And this one I'm just going to target on those plants that are in these rows here. All right, so that's pretty good. And again, I can move that into my layer that's intended to hide things. All right, now if I need other hide terrain objects, for example, if I want to get rid of a tree in a specific area, then I can go ahead and either edit the existing ones I've placed down by enabling the transformation and visibility. So if I do want to get rid of a tree, I can go ahead and expand it out to get rid of a tree or a bush. But we'll go ahead and leave these here as they are and start building our base and then decide what needs to be hidden. I try to leave as much on the map as I can because it does add the visual interest to it. So we need to make a fuel depot. Part of the mods that I load are ZEC, ZEI, and Peachy's compositions. If you look under Peachy's compositions, you literally got hundreds of different compositions for different types of objects. And here, for example, is a petrol station. It's not really what we need, but quickly and easily create something like that. It looks good. It's got the elements needed. And then if it's not perfect, you can modify it. So I'm going to go through the Peachy compositions and the ZEC compositions and see if we can find what we're looking for. Again, we're looking for a fuel depot, so we'll just search for fuel. If I spelt it right, I started to and misspelt it. All right, so here we got some fuel depot. So let's look at the different ones. Here's fuel depot large, probably on the order of what we want. It's getting there. It's not quite the look I'm looking for. So let's get rid of that and we'll try a different one. So we did this one. Here's refinery. Fuel drop, too small. Storage area. We can combine things. Here we go. This is getting a little bigger. All right. Still not quite what I'm looking for. But it's close maybe. So let's just keep looking at what's available. And then if there's nothing perfect for what I'm looking for, then we'll modify something. I actually like that building. And so I'm not going to use it right now, but I'm just going to put it aside. So it's maybe something I'll use. And again, that's what's nice is you can take pieces and parts and build it up. So let's look at the storage tank area. So, you know, kind of these two things, the storage tank with that kind of work together. Having a fenced in area is nice. We can leave that. I'm not real fond of the bunker system out here, but the sandbags are okay. I think these garbage bags are way overused, so I tend to remove them. The rest of these things are okay. Cinder blocks, not really. It's not newly built. It's not a construction site, so it doesn't really apply. One of the nice things you can see this is using Pacific coloring. Obviously, Pacific doesn't really work in this map. It's really savanna, kind of a North African savanna. So I want to change this to desert. One of the nice things about ZEI is that you can do an object switch. So I can click in this area and I want to switch to vanilla desert. Okay, and all of a sudden those sandbags change to desert style sandbags. Real quick, real easy, nice to do. Don't know if it actually works on vehicles. No, it doesn't. That would have been nice if I just click here and it just happened to work on the business. You can choose cup desert if you wanted to switch to cup desert. You can see cup desert's a little bit different. I prefer the vanilla desert, the standard color sandbags. So I'm going to go ahead and select these things, get rid of these vehicles here because they don't really go with what we're doing. And I'm just going to move them to the side. It's not quite what I'm looking for yet, but I'm going to keep that just in case. So let's go back to the compositions. And we're going to search for fuel again. Let's go through some of these more deep fuel depots here. So that's an option. And that's blue 4, so we really don't want blue 4, but I just wanted to see the idea. Again, you can see these garbage is kind of overused in my opinion. Let's try independent. So, same sort of thing. I'm not a big fan of these bunker towers myself either, but they tend to be used a lot. Again, not really the look I'm looking for. So again, we'll just delete it, and we're going to keep going. I know it's not the funnest in the world. That's, again, that one building. I think I need bigger than this. So let's go and get rid of that. I know it's not always, this is a refinery, so there we go. That's more like what I'm thinking. Needs some modification, but you can see it's kind of that look that I was looking for with this one. This one's the gray versus the yellowish tan. I do like having the storage building, so I might add that into this whole compound. So this is getting us there. So I like that. It's not perfect. We're gonna whoops. Let me undo that. I selected the hide objects. I'm just gonna move this aside. I'm not gonna, we're really close with that. Whoops. We're really close with that, but it may not be perfect. So I want to take a moment and just make sure there's nothing else that might be better. So we'll move that aside. And so we were at refinery. That's refinery op 4. A little bit more condensed. Has a bigger tower, which I like. Again, I like this one too. This one had both H barriers and a fenced wall, and this one is just H barrier. To me, this looks a little bit more thrown up, which is good. Has good shooting on the side, front. We need something on the back, but we can take care of that. So this is another good one. Again, it may just be a combination of 2 or 3 of them that we end up going with. So I'll go ahead and move this aside. And I'm just going to look at a couple more of these here because we're getting towards the end. So, yeah, this is definitely small, single building. Not quite what I'm looking for. It's very similar to something we looked at earlier. Let's see what this fuel dump has. Okay, so I like this building in there. I don't like the coloring of it. So this is a cup fuel station. And the one tank here. And that's about it. Let's see if there's a cup fuel station in another color scheme. So we'll just search for fuel. We got fuel stations here. Let's go through them. Well, I cannot find even that one. I really actually don't remember that fuel station, so that is bizarre. So it's Fuel Station Army. And that's weird. It's not coming up in the search. So that is surprising. This cup terrains. Okay, so let's do this. Right click. I'm going to find in the asset browser. And it did not find it. No wonder I haven't seen it. It's not finding it in the asset browser. So that is very, very interesting. So, I guess if we're going to use this, we'll have to stick with the color scheme that it is. Yeah, it's not even showing in the types here in the object search. That is very interesting. All right, we'll keep that in mind. Or maybe we could make something similar of our own with cargo nets and just a tank and then a pump and maybe an outbuilding sort of thing. Might not look as good, but the color scheme is, we could make it more of the desert color scheme. So let's do that real quick because I do like that sort of thing. So we got a tank here. So we need a small shed. We'll just go ahead and search for shed. And we'll look at the sheds available to us. I want more of a metal shed. Here we go. We're getting there with this. Okay, and then it has another cover and then a gas pump. See if we can find a gas pump that works good for us. I try not to give up when I find the first item. You know, I found that shed real quick. This is a nice secondary shed. We can go off of this one here. We'll need to change the spacing a little bit. I'm just trying to get the angle. When you're an editor, definitely don't just move things around unless you know you want free placement of things. And I also use kind of this line on the arrow to line up with other buildings to try to line up the angles. You can obviously go in here and see that it's almost 180 degrees. So I could set this at 180, this one at 90, and this one at 180, and now all the angles are consistent. What I do a lot is I go into this translation widget. That way, when I move things, I'm moving it in only one direction, and I can move it exactly the amount I want. So if I just grab an arm, say I just move that 1.5 meters, and makes it more realistic spacing. So we'll go ahead and put a pump here. I know there is a fuel pump that is more like what I want. So it's not under that. Let's search for fuel again. There we go. I just want the very basic fuel pump. Again, we can go in here, check the angles, set it at 270, and we know that they're within 90-degree angles of each other. Again, translation widget to move it just in the X, Y, and Z coordinates. And this actually probably needs another one, so I'm going to do Control C, then Control Shift V. That makes another copy and places it right on top of the other one. So I keep the angles the same and just drag it over to the side. That way I've got them lined up exactly to one another. All right, so for this one now, we do need a pump of some sort. There is a fuel, boy, my spelling is way off there. There is different pumps, if I can find it. And I don't see it there. Yeah, maybe the water pump sort of thing. Use it, act like a fuel pump. It may be part of the new contact DLC items. I remember something. Yeah, we got a refueling hose here we can put nearby just to add some of the details. And again, you could put fuel cans inside to one of these sheds and then fuel barrels in here as well. We'll go ahead and place Control C, and then now wherever my mouse is, when I hit Control V, it will, whoops, let's try that again, Control C, Control V, place another one. I'll place a few of them, and obviously if they're all facing the same direction and all that, it does not look good. Whoops, Control Z. So one of the things that I use is the 3D and it has a placement tools and randomized direction. And that's okay. Generally, it's just going to do it anywhere in that 360 degrees, and that doesn't quite look right. So I'm just going to line these up like someone just came in here and had to move them in. If you wanted them very specific grid layout, you could do that. And now we're going to do, I think it's under oil. Yeah, we can add an oil spill in here. Oh, oil spills go on ground only. Forgot about that. What I'm looking for is there are a bunch of barrels that are on a platform. So let me search for barrel. Again, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and add them to the chat. I am kind of keeping an eye on the chat. Again, this is just to give you guys an idea of what goes into, there we go, into building the missions for NAK Tac. But if you have any specific questions, whether they're related to NAK Tac or not, go ahead and feel free to ask your question. It's interesting. One's titled wooden barrel, one's just titled barrels. And then we can put some other barrels in here, not on the platform. There we go. Well, that one's burning. We don't want a burning one. Go ahead and space these out a little bit. You don't want them to look like they're exactly a certain grid. You know, you want them kind of randomly placed, like someone brought them in. Again, all these tops are pointed in the same direction, which just to me looks odd. So again, I will go into placement and randomized direction. For that, randomized direction is perfect. It doesn't really care the round, and it just randomly points the hole in a direction. So has the labels facing another way. So that's that, and let's go ahead and put a net over it, a cargo net. I just know by searching for net, I'll find all the nets I want. And I think it's this. Actually, we're going to go with desert again. Let's see if we can find a desert color is big enough. That's hex. I don't want hex. There we go. So that's not totally open though. I really would prefer to have one that has a back open on it. There we go. That's good. Take that, put it over here. And again, nice thing about this translation widget, I just grab the blue, which is the Y, and increase it. Now we've got a net over that sort of stuff, hiding it from the bad guys. And we can adjust the angle slightly. And what we'll do is put this in here like it's being used from inside a pump station. And that looks pretty good. Let's adjust the height. You can see the tires are inside the ground. Not really what I want. So what I'm going to do is turn off surface snapping, turn off alignment, and then I'm going to raise it until the tires are just at ground level. And there we go. So that composition, or that grouping of items is done. And what I'm going to do now is just select all those items. And even though I probably won't use it again, there is a small chance. So I'm going to go to these custom compositions. These are compositions that I've made throughout time in NAK Tac missions. And I do reuse a lot of them. This one I don't know that I'll reuse, but I'm going to save it anyway. So we'll go ahead and save new composition. And I save these under category clutter. It's just how I categorize them. And then I will call it, because I'm using
private message received.
I'm going to go ahead and call it NAK Tac as the preface. And then I'll call it fuel pump station. Alright, so that is saved and I can reuse it. But again, I think I like this one, a lot of those elements. So I'm going to get rid of this building. I'll get rid of this. I actually like some of these elements as well. So we'll do a combination of them. So I'm going to drag this over. You can see, because I had ground snapping off, everything went below ground level. So I do want to put ground snapping and surface level on. And then I'll go with adjust everything accordingly in a second. I'm going to try to find the flattest area, which looks like to be on this side of the road. We'll move these objects out of our way for a second. I kind of want this front end to be here. So we'll select all this, unselect those two terrain objects. We're going to lock those down so I don't continue to select them. We'll go ahead and select all these, and then we're going to rotate it and line it up on the road. So positioning is still, obviously, if I come down to this level, things are floating, and obviously that's not good. So I'm going to hold the Alt key with everything selected and drag them down to the ground. Now you can kind of see where it's lined up a little bit more. I do need to rotate it just a little bit. So I'm going to select it again. And now I'm going to do the rotation widget so I can just rotate it a tiny bit really easy using this dial. And you can see the angle that you're turning it down there. So just 1.5 degrees roughly. Okay, so now it's in the middle of that bush. I don't want that. Make sure there's no other bushes, and there aren't. So I'm going to select them all again. Translation widget. Okay, now you can see if I move it on the x-axis, it's going to go at an angle. So instead of world coordinates, I'm going to put it on object coordinates. Now it's the way I want it, and I'll move it over a little bit and move it back just a touch. And then we're going to search around and make sure we're not colliding with anything. And then this is the boring part. I'm going to go through every object real quick and make sure that it did place correctly at ground level, and make sure we don't have duplicates. I am a little particular about how like H barriers line up. And so I'm going to go through each one of them, pick them up, put them down, make sure they line up properly. So up, down, and then I'll slide them over so they line up. So you have to do that with every object, unfortunately, but you get fast at it over time. You can see this one's kind of colliding with that one a little bit. It's just my pickiness. Now you can either do that, which looks okay, but it makes a gap. But it's how it would physically line up in real life, so I tend to do it that way. So I'll pick this up, drop it down, move this one, pick it up, drop it down. And now you can see my spacing is a little bit off, so I do adjust them again. A little bit of collision is okay, but you know, half a box. Now, sometimes you have to, and there's no choice. And in this case, you know, actually colliding it halfway gets rid of that extra spacing. Or you can change the object to a 3-block barrier. This one is a smaller barrier though, so it's not quite as big. Or you can go to the single block and make 3 of them, but again, not quite as big. So sometimes you do have to do the collision, and there's nothing you can do about it. So again, select these, up, down, move them over. If you're going to play the mission tomorrow, again, this is a tank mission. This is just one of the locations in the mission. So the bad guys are trying to get to here, and then they're trying to get to their base. And you need to stop them from getting to their base. Since you know they're coming here, it's a way that you can kind of cut them off on their path without having to drive the whole way. Now, I didn't build this one, but you can see like there's a gap where this is lower than this. I'm real picky about the way I develop mine. If I were to develop it from scratch, I would fix all that. We had that collision here, so we can actually move it down some, and it's closer. And now when I fix all these, I would actually go in, come here, get the X and Y coordinates, and make sure this one was on the same X and Y coordinates. It's just how picky I am. It's really not natural, to be honest, because people in real life are going to just be dropping down the H barriers where they can. So having some inaccuracy, I guess you could say, in the in it would be more realistic. So again, welcome to the live stream. Again, if you read the description down below, some people have asked me what goes into making a NAK Tac mission. You know, how much, you know, I tell people that I spend a couple hours making a mission for each day. So I just wanted to show you guys what actually goes into making it. The beginning of the video showed what Volcano and I do to kind of lay out the 5 weeks. And now this is the actual development of 1 week of those 5 weeks. So again, I'll move this. I'm just lifting them all, putting them back down, making sure they're setting flush on the ground. I'm probably going to go, yeah, you can see this metal barrel didn't sit flush when I lifted it, so that's why. All these need to be picked up. Cinder blocks isn't really appropriate here, so I'm going to get rid of it. These are okay, but sitting vertical like that, they should be kind of next to each other and leaning against something. You can change angles, so if I select these two, again, use my rotation widget, and then rotate both of them so they're like leaning up against that box. And then go to my translation widget. I would go back to world because I want it to be straight up and down. I'm going to turn off snapping. And that way I can kind of set it so that the edge is sitting. And then I would set this box so it would, whoops, it's turning at weird angles. There we go. So it would be what it's leaning against. So you can get all these sorts of angles and get things leaning the way you want. Again, this one isn't touching the ground, so I would go into it and adjust it so that they were staggered like they were leaning. And this is why making a mission can take 2 hours or plus for each, just setting up the objects for a mission. Each one of these needs to be picked up. Whoops, I turned off snapping, so I need to turn back snapping on. There we go. Pick that up. Sometimes things can be underground and it actually looks okay. You know, you want to hide the bottom of things. This is open barrel. Okay, it's not burning. We don't want a burning one in a fuel area. Each one of these need to be picked up. This one is a hex, which looks okay, but I'm going to make them all the sand or the tan. So I'm going to go ahead and change that one. And we will find a camouflage color. I think it's going to be under net again. So I'm just going to search for net. And then we're going to pick desert camouflage net. I think that's it. That one's okay. I don't like that one actually is okay. Let's just try NATO though. There we go. That's the one we want. Sometimes these nets feel low to me. And again, you can go ahead and just turn on that widget, turn off ground snapping, and raise them up a little bit. The poles are quite long. I'll go ahead and raise the poles all the way. You can see quite a lot of room to work with if you want them higher. One of the things I'm going to do with all nets at the end is I'm going to make all nets indestructible. And one of the weird things with Arma is when nets collapse, they look really bizarre. So I make all my nets indestructible. Okay, I definitely want ground snapping and terrain. I don't want terrain on. I want buildings to always be 0, 0. So I want them to be flat, even if the ground is not. And then I'm going to just adjust it until everything is at ground level. You can see the stairs work fine. This is not a building that you can go into. That's why I'm not worried about these plants that are inside here. But the outside is all. So we just want to make sure the stairs and everything and the ladder works well. So that is all good and it's all square. Again, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and feel free to post a question here. I don't know who's watching. I can just see somebody's watching. A couple people. Let's go ahead and do the other net while we're here. So this is a vehicle cover. It's a little bit bigger. Again, then we'll search for net. And I think down here below, where are they? All right, I cannot find the one I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is cancel this. I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to search for net. And I'm going to place down a sample of each one. Each one that I might be considered in using. So hex is okay. If I have no other choice, I'll use hex. We'll look at the other hex. Is that one? We got a couple woodlands. We got the green hex, which really don't think will work. Actually, it's not bad. So we'll keep that as an option. And here we go. Here's our desert ones. So we got that one and that one. All right. So those really are all the nets that we have. So what will replace this one is probably this one right here. It's not quite big enough, so maybe we're going to have to use 2 or maybe just 1 and not cover everything. Again, those nets feel low to me. I don't know why. I always raise them some. So that covers that area pretty good. Nets, I'm not as picky in the poles that they end up in H barriers and stuff like that. It's just one of those things I'm willing to accept, where other things I'm not. This one is the same type. We'll copy this one, paste it here, get rid of that one, and move that one in. Again, we have to move all the objects to ground level. We'll turn on our stamping and terrain follow. All right, now we got all those good. You can select small groups and do it. It's just when you do a whole group, it generally doesn't, they don't all snap as well when you do very large groups. So I'll do smaller groups and snap those, make sure they're setting the way I want. I do like the tower there, it's good. We definitely need something on this back side. So that's maybe where we'll put this sort of, whoops, oil tank. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of that train object. I definitely don't want that there. So what we'll do is show our terrain, find the one that's here, select area widget so we can draw it out a little bit more. Oh, this one's not hiding the trees, that's why. So we'll go ahead and create a new one for that one then. Again, environment, high terrain object. And my guess these rocks are going to be in the way as well, so we'll go ahead and get rid of them. I think these will be okay. we'll extend it if we have to. So what we'll do is grab this, rotate it. So now the question is, do we leave the fence or do we replace it with H barrier, which is what's there, you know, which would kind of blend in with what's there. I think I like this. I may put a sandbag right here. I like the opening. These sandbags are fine. We'll move this. I like that just is in the way. I like the bush there where it's right up against the fence, but because it's cutting through the fence, I don't like it. Again, I can get very picky about certain things. So that rock, that bush, and we need to catch this first bush down there. There we go. Oh, we got another rock there. That one has to go now. Then I've moved it a little bit. And to be honest, this first rock here, because this is the gate, so we need to catch that one. All right, that looks good. So we'll go ahead and just move these forward. Again, I don't think the cinder blocks work in this. I would probably switch that. There are a few piles of trash that look good. And I just noticed search for pile, and they're like lines of garbage, and there's a couple of them that look tropical, which really not quite right for this, but this looks good, so we'll get rid of that and put that line of garbage up against the fence. To me, those look better than those big giant piles of trash bags that tend to be overused in a lot of these compositions. We could do this pile of junk here. That's a decent mix of junk. I'm not real fond of the toilet there, but it works. I want to move that out so it can actually be used as to hide behind a little bit. This truck never will make that turn, so I'm just gonna position it like it was here. Don't mind these. Again, just making sure everything's sitting flat on the ground. We can actually get rid of this part of the fence and this pole, but otherwise the fence terminates into it, which is good. These, whoops. So now I don't want this building to move like it just did. I want to make sure it's still flat the way I want it. Make sure that its height looks good. We could increase its height a little bit, but then it makes this ramp a little bit steep. So what I'm going to do now is get this, and I'm going to move it into a locked. So I'm going to move it into its own layer, and then I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to keep it visible, but now I can't move this building around anymore. I've locked it from being transformed. That will keep me from accidentally dragging it anywhere. All right, so we'll do something with that in a minute. Let's go ahead and copy this. And I want the reverse of that. So I'm going to go to Tools. And I'm going to reverse. Whoops, that obviously didn't work. So I'm just going to grab these. Switch to, drag that over, so it's the opposite of that now. And we'll just move that in, let's see. Yeah, that doesn't quite work. So what I'm going to do is take that out, rotate this, put it here. I want to give you guys something to hide behind. So this is at 214, and I want 90 degrees off at 214. So 214 minus 90 is 124. There we go. So now it's 90 degrees to that. copy, Control CV. Now I've got a second copy of that one right there where that one is, and then I'll drag it so now they're lined up well. Take this, rotate them, and line it up there. Better placement. Looks like it kind of belongs, but it's not sticking out and kind of floating nowhere. And again, in the mission, we could put static weapons here. We could just put a guy standing there behind them, whatever the case may be. All these fuel trucks I'm going to change because they don't kind of fit in with the enemies that we're using. That looks good. Okay, so this placement needs to change a little bit because it was hitting that wall. Bring it up and down. And everything, that step is a little bit steep there. So what I'm going to do is turn off terrain snapping, and I'm going to just lower it just a little bit more. And that works, I think, better. And then I'm going to check its angle, 0, 0. Almost every building I put down at 0, 0. That means they don't have any tilt. If I put down this building, for example, and it has terrain mapping on, it would potentially end up with a tilt like this to kind of match the ground, and it just doesn't feel right when you're going upstairs at an angle and stuff like that. So every building I put down, I try to make sure I'm putting it 0, 0. Alright, so I think I've picked up everything there. Everything here looks good. It's kind of odd that it was square round over there and square over here, but again, that's just nitpicky, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. These, I actually like doing this. They're made to actually go over the H barrier like that, and half be on one side and half on the other. To me, it kind of looks cool and brings the shooting out into the open. They take a little bit less room like that. So we'll bring these right up to the sandbag. And then I double check just to make sure the stairs aren't in the middle of anything. And then because I moved that, this is off, so we need to move these. Put terrain snapping on again. Okay, all that looks good. That one's right up on the edge. This one's not. So let's move this one right up to the edge. Kind of mirroring. I think people would set things up logically mirrored like that. And if we want, we can put a gate in here. So I think it's under gate. Let's check. Yep, bar gate. So we'll do a bar gate. We'll start with it open. Oh, that was weird. All right, let's bring it up. It's on snapping, but it doesn't seem to want to snap there. Oh, there it goes. It snapped, but it's partly in the ground. Let's try bar gate closed and see what happens here. That one looks better. And there we go. So we could do that. There is a second version of it. I think this one's a little bit longer. Nope, it's actually shorter. Yeah, so we'll go with the longer one. All right. I think that's a pretty good looking fuel depot. So is there any elements from this one that we want to add to the other one? This is kind of interesting as a back route in and with the fence down. We could put the chain link fence all around it. It would make it harder to climb. With the razor wire on top. But to me, that makes you think that it's a little bit more established, and this is supposed to be relatively new or taken over. I think I'm going to leave it as it is. I think I'm going to leave that. All right, let's go ahead and pick the right vehicles now. Then otherwise, the fuel depot is pretty much done. So we can put some stuff on this side of it, but we'll see. All right, so we want, I know, even though this is Northern Africa, we went through the different units that were available. And we don't want to be fighting rebels. We want it to be more of an established military.
Private message received.
Through the options we had. Whoops. We went through the options we had, and we could use Spetsnaz, but which is the new faction. But they're a little bit too organized. We wanted it to be more of a ragtag army. So even though it doesn't quite fit, we did pick the Serrani Liberation Army as the bad guys. And to me, that's the right look. A little bit older, but still a military force. So that's who our op 4 is going to be. So we want to pick appropriate cars and vehicles in that area. So we got a fuel truck. So we'll get rid of the, whoops, we'll get rid of the camas. And we'll add a fuel truck. Oops, we don't want it full, so we're going to take the guy out. And then what I'll just do is uncheck place with vehicles. We'll add another fuel truck here. Going to rotate it. Okay, so here, it's a good place for a defensive vehicle. So what we'll look at, like the APCs, and we can put a BTR in there, which is okay, or BRDM is a little bit big maybe. Let's see what we have here in the cars. We got a disc on that one, so maybe that one will work. Yeah, that'll work. Not armored, should be relatively easy to take care of. We'll put a, I'll leave the civilian type fuel truck there. I think that feels good, looks good. And now I'm going to recommend just a couple static position for weapons. Not necessarily sure that we will leave them there, but we'll go ahead and put a discus static here. I do like an idea of putting a discus static there in the front as well. So I'm just going to copy all these things. Do as much copying and pasting as you can. Save you time. Okay, and I don't need the long wall on that back wall. I want this one to be a short one, so I just double click to short and then change the translation and slide it in there. And then we'll just, whoops. This is why I lock things down sometimes, because you can accidentally grab them. And we'll just set a disc out there in front. I think there's enough room for a person there. Move the legs right up on it. Alright, so we'll get rid of these other objects that we don't need anymore. Oh, I forgot about my whole thing that I made to begin with. So I'm going to put this as like the pumping station out in the back. I wanted basically, actually, nope, the other side of the road. Good thing for the other side of the road, see? You know, I want something for the friendlies to be able to hide behind and stuff like that as they're approaching. But it is a vehicles mission, so they don't have to worry about too much hiding behind things. And then the trees actually here are pretty good position. Obviously that's not great. So instead of moving the tree, I will move the building a little bit. See how that looks. That looks good. Yeah, I'm going to probably go with that tree's probably too big. So we'll go ahead and hide that tree as well. We're going to to have to add another hide terrain object here. So again, if you have any comments, questions, or anything that I can help answer, just why I do something a certain way, let me know. Add them to the comments. Happy to answer whatever I can. I don't want to give too much about the mission away. So I did move that. Now it's in the fence. Okay, and that pole's not in the way now. That all looks good. So we got a little pumping station so people can refill without having to go into the fuel station. Angle's a little bit off, so we'll select it. Choose the angle. Just rotate it a tiny bit. Now definitely that tree in the back is perfect. It looks fine. You can add some trees. There's not all of them are exposed with the mods that we use, but there are some. So there's definitely plenty of rocks that I can add in here. And then under cup environments, there are some plants and bushes that you can add in. Not a lot. Prickly bush. Yeah, we can add a prickly bush to the front corner. So I try not to add too much more than you absolutely need, because then it slows the server down. And the more you add, it has to compensate. I do like elements of this one a lot, but can only have one in here. So we'll go ahead and delete this now. Don't need it anymore. This is the one we're going to go with. I'm going to go ahead and move all my terrain hiding elements into their area. And then I'm going to lock them and hide them. Just makes it cleaner to look at. Alright, now because this is supposed to be a military refinery, it doesn't look very military yet. We're going to make it look a lot more military in one easy step. We're going to go into Systems, ZEI, and we're going to do Interior Fill. Even though we're really not filling the interior, this is what we're going to use. We're going to set it to an object as military. We're going to click on OK, and then it adds a whole bunch of items for us automatically. If there was an interior to the building, it would have filled the interior with desks and all that sort of stuff. But in this case, it just added sandbags at various locations, made it a little bit more defensive. I do not like using these on top of buildings. It just, to me, it doesn't work for one reason or another. I'm not real big on adding nets on top of buildings. There's really no way to attach them to the roof. I guess if you really wanted to, you could. These sort of things are okay, not quite what I'm looking for. This one's okay, the barrel's okay. If you want to add a little bit more, you definitely can. I saw these things weren't snapped right. You know, we could add the pallets up there. There's a lot of decoration you can do. The reason why I did the ZEI is mostly for that sandbagging. That saved me a ton of time. It did an okay job. Put them all on the edges, all around. Looks nice. I say it just adds enough detail. You can see it added it to this one. So if we want to add sandbags to this, again, we can do that with ZEI. Interior fill, military, and all of a sudden all the sandbags placed really well in a circle around the outside edge. Again, not big on bunkers on top. Sometimes I've used nets. Again, I'm not real fond of it. This is okay. I would rather it be something else. So what we'll do is duplicate like this wood crates. And we will find some other wooden box to put up there. So we'll just search for wooden. It'll bring us all the wooden tables and whatnot. And I know there's some wooden boxes down here in the bottom. I'm just curious. That's not a bad little shelter. I'll have to remember that name. That's a lot of this is remembering all these items. There are so many of them. It is so hard to remember them. You just do your best and try to remember, um, what looks right. At least remember the beginning of it so that you can do the search and find them. You don't want to put too many objects of the same coloring and type up there. So we can put these crates up there. That'll do good. And this, again, I'm just trying to give things for people to hide behind more than anything. So I think that looks really good. Any comments? What should I add to it? I think I may go ahead and move the sandbags down to this first level here. And I'll copy, Control C, Control Shift V, pastes it in the same place. This right here, what you just witnessed, is the biggest problem with ZEC and using it outside of the editor. When you use it inside of Zeus, sometimes you'll get these floating sandbags, very hard to correct in Zeus. In the editor, it's much easier to correct. I'll just move them down to the level, move them up, and move this where I want it. It's just one of those things that you've got to deal with. I love ZEI. It does an excellent job. It's a really good mod for what it does. And the small little things that I have to put up with are definitely worth it for what I get in return. Control C, Control Shift V. Made a copy of it. Just drag it forward so it's closer. I think I need one more. We'll go with a short. Control C, Control Shift V. Change it to a short wall. And then drag it up there. There we go. We can put a couple on this side. I think I will on at least the top. We already got the sandbag up here. I think I'm going to make a copy, make one more. Bring it out to the edge so you can hide as soon as you climb up the stairs. So what we'll do is take this sandbag, Control C, move the mouse here, Control V. It's already snapped to the metal. Close to long enough. I think we're going to have to go with a short one. Control C, Control Shift V, drag it forward, double click short wall. We'll drag it forward a little more. There we go. Think it's good. All right. No comments, no questions. I am going to now, all we need is I'm going to hide all this stuff that's our markers for the mission. And these are just for, why is there a guy there? Guy got away. There's a crewman. Must have put it down to test something. I'm glad I found him now. These were all for Volcano and I, just to do the mission. Oh, actually, I just need to select the markers. So let me go down to the markers section. All right, here's all the markers. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, they're all up here in their own category. That actually makes it really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and add them to their own layer, and then I will hide that layer. So if Volcano needs any other notes or whatever, we will have them. These items, quick look. Don't want to give too much away. Those will be, again, the 4th week stuff. But I've already added some of it to kind of give Volcano an idea where I was going. We've got the firing range already on the map so that you guys can practice your weapons. I actually may move. I've got the grenade range off the map, kind of. And I only did that because it was flatter ground and it was right here next to it. kind of looks a little odd, but I think I'm going to leave it. It's just a firing range. I could put it back here. There's enough flat ground, I think, back here. It's not quite flat, but it would have worked. But I'll leave it. Any questions, comments? I'm now just going to basically set up the quote-unquote satellite images of the bad guys that are going to be coming and that you guys are going to have to stop. I don't want to show you too much, but I'm going to show you just a little bit of what you're going to be fighting. It is definitely going to be a tank and air battle. So the more players we get in NAK Tac this week, again, it's tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time, the more tanks we can have, and potentially the aircraft. We can have some aircraft up in the air. So it's up to how many people we get attending. The collection of mods, I believe I added to the description of the video already. Let me check. Yep, so I did add the mod collection already on the description of this video. It is also on our website. So if you have any questions about what mods we're going to be using, let's see, mechanized infantry, we'll put a unit here, put these guys inside it. Oops. We'll make a couple of these. Definitely, as my description of the video said, it's going to be tanks in a target-rich environment. So we're definitely going to have a lot of vehicles for you guys to shoot at. Thank you, Cop Out. Let's see if we can put a few guys. Anti-tank vehicle. Whoops. That's already full. Yep. Go and delete the extra guys. Whoops. So keep that in mind when you guys are coming. And then let's put down a few trucks here. The bad guys are trying to get to their fuel base to refuel, which we built that earlier. We know where that is. And then from the fuel base, they're going to go to their base, which is down in this direction. So you guys are going to come from the airport, try to cut them off, and beat them or stop them from getting down to their base down there at the bottom. So before the mission, we give quote-unquote satellite imagery. And this is what I'm preparing right now. These may not be all the bad guys or an exact placement of where the bad guys are going to be, but this will allow us to create the satellite imagery to give you guys an idea at least of what you're facing. So we'll put some trucks in here, some big cargo trucks. Let's see. We'll put a repair truck. Looks good. Well, we got to put crew in that. A repair truck. That'll be followed by a refueling truck. And then we'll put a couple guys with a couple squads of infantry in them. And what I'll do now is just put down the infantry squad. And then you drag them into the vehicle and they will automatically go into the seats that are available. So we'll do that again. Fill those seats up a little bit. This one we can pick a whole squad. I think we'll put a whole squad in here. There we go. And again on this one. Alright, that's a good start for our satellite image. And now what I do basically is I'm going to run the mission real quick, make these guys drive just a tiny bit to get them hot. There is some commands that we can run to make sure they turn on their engines. I've got that code, for example, in this guy. So turn engine on, turn lights on. So we'll go ahead and copy that code. And we'll paste that same code into these guys up here. You can see we just posted our campaign mission description. So if you go to our Steam work group, let's see if you posted in our announcements, I believe. So if you go to NAK Tactical, anybody can come here.
Private message received.
NAK Tac, and then go to announcements. We've got a rundown of the mission, what the purpose is, what the objective is, and the mods that are required. So you guys can come here, and then we post the full campaign in our forums as well, with some images and all the information to get you guys all ready for that campaign. So let's go ahead and go back to here. These should all now be turned on. Let me double check. Whoops. Let me clear this. Select just the vehicles here. You can see how many things I've got on the map already. So we'll select just the vehicles that we need. There we go. And we'll set that engine on them. Alright, so let's just pick one to confirm. Sometimes ARM is weird, so I like to confirm it. And what I'll do is I'll launch the mission now. And then I'll go into spectator mode, zoom way out. Oh, we're going to fix that when I'm done. I'll zoom way out and then just take a picture of those enemies in night vision or whatever to make it look like a satellite imagery. So like I said, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and feel free to list them here in the video. This was just to give you guys a small idea of what goes into making the missions. Whoops, didn't like that error. I think I put it on the whole composition of the people. And the people, it's not something that would run on people.
Switch to NAK Tac Task Force Radio. Switch to NAK Live Stream.
Fortunately, there's not a lot of noise for you guys to hear but me. But that'll have to do for now. Let's just make our teleport to firing range worked. Here's our firing range. There's a practice helicopter that can't be destroyed for you guys to practice with. And then our grenade range, so you can test the splash damage, and then the other side is your accuracy target, throwing it through doors and whatnot. So let's go into spectator real quick. I'm going to zoom way out over the top of all those groups that we put in a few minutes ago. And we're going to zoom out. We're going to get rid of all that. We're going to line it up to make it look like a satellite. And I want to cut to the edge of the map. And then maybe night vision, thermal. That looks good. So you can see a large group of bad guys. I'm going to go ahead and turn on
Switch to NAK Tac Task Force Radio.
So that looks like a pretty good image from a satellite perspective, so that you can kind of see what you're going to face. And there probably will be a lot more during the mission. Let me go into Zeus mode real quick and add a couple more guys in front. So I'm going to exit out of this, exit out of spectator, and go into Zeus mode. These won't be in the mission.
Switch to NAK Live Stream.
Because I'm putting them in Zeus. but
Switch to NAK Tac Task Force Radio.
At least it will give you an idea. I just think there needed to be some guys kind of ahead and maybe even on the ground. So let's put a couple of Urals here. Scroll down. Nope. Single units. Scroll down to Serrani. There they are. Line cars. Urals, Dishkas. Put a few guys in it. Let's make sure they're hot, so we'll move them a little bit. Come on, guys. Move. Turn engine on. That is weird that I don't have the engine on option. There we go. Gosh. Alright. So we'll make a copy of this guy. Put one over there. One over there. I'll put a couple squads on the ground so we can see light heat signatures of them on the ground. Serrani, infantry desert, infantry section. We do have a whole mix of guys. We got the desert guys, and we got the standard guys. So the Serrani guys, even though wrong country and everything, it just kind of worked out and looked good for what we were doing. I'll put down some more bad guys. A couple more. Alright, now let's see what this looks like from a heat signature standpoint. And this will be the end. So, zoom way out. Where'd those guys go? I'm lost. Oh, they're behind me more. There we go. Alright, so let's actually place our camera so it's right on the edge of the map. I know we're skirting the edge of the map, so... Oh, there we go. That looks good. That's a nice satellite photo. See if we can come in just a little bit. There we go. So now I'll take a picture of that. Whoops. There we go. And now before the mission, we'll show this to the squad leader so that they can get an idea of what they might be facing. Before the mission, I may take another one that's a little bit more accurate because these may not be the units that we actually use. But this will just give you an idea. We'll use this as kind of the promotional image. Sorry, couldn't think of the word. Alright guys, well thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions even after the fact, you can add them to the comments of the video. I do answer all the comments. So if you have any feedback, if you want to see something else in a video, or you're interested in anything else, let us know. Happy to give you whatever information we can. If you want some information about coding and what goes into actually writing the scripts behind the mission, this mission, once you watch the stream, you'll be surprised at the scripts that we're actually going to be using. So maybe I will cover that after the stream. I don't want to give away too much. This was even giving away a little bit more than maybe I wanted, so hopefully we won't get a lot of people watching this video until after the mission tomorrow. But I just wanted to give some input or some idea. So that's week 1. That's it. You know, the rest is going to be done while we're in Zeus mode. But that's what it takes. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified about when we do other live streams, because we do them impromptu sometimes, press that bell icon. You'll get a notification anytime the stream starts. All right. Goodbye.